And welcome. I'm not going to do the Chip Patterson intro. I really can't do that justice. I'm Bud Elliott. That's Andrew Ivins. This is Cover 3, and this is the Cover 3 recruiting hour. I just figured, hey, man, we got signing day coming up in a couple months here. Excited. It's really time. Even if you're not a diehard recruiting fan, you watch this national title race, you know it matters. No better guy to bring on than Andrew Ivins, director of Scouted 24/7 Sports. What's going on, dude?
Not much, bud. Just gearing up for another fun week of college football. I was hoping maybe I can make it up to the Cover 3 tailgate on, Friday. Unfortunately, just not going to happen. I'm going to be at Arch Manning versus hopefully DJ Lagway. I think I'm going to wear some earmuffs on Saturday so I don't have to hear all the commentary from all the quarterback gurus in the stands.
Battle of the Five Stars, right? Oh, man. I actually did talk to a head coach who played Arch Manning recently, and I was just texting with him. He's like, it's not as bad as what I see on social media. Like, you see some flashes. I think that kid might be close. I was like, man, I hope so, because I do want to see Texas like fully operational with him.
Well, here, Bud, I think this applies to the NFL as well. I think it's really hard to play quarterback. And I think as the public, we need to kind of accept that. My favorite thing is, in these former five stars or even, guys that had a really good season in 2024, when they kind of stumble, I'm like, okay, if you could just construct a roster, who's the quarterback that would be your guy, whether that's in the college or NFL? And, it's not a long list of names. So I think it's really hard not only to play the position, but to predict future success at quarterback.
Absolutely. So some teams recently who are having a lot of success with guys they recruited out of high school and some transfers, some big time games this week. I kind of want to take a look back at some of the stars that they had and maybe kind of dive into their backgrounds a little bit. I know we follow this, maybe a lot of the folks at home do not. I'm going to start with the Oregon Ducks, man. Like, great job in the portal, adding to what was already one of the most talented rosters in the country. I know when you and I talked a lot in the offseason, it's like, man, I like their physical abilities. We have not seen many of these Oregon guys play very many snaps. Like, Oregon played a lot of their vets last year. They did not play a lot of the young guys. And so obviously it was kind of a mystery as to what they would be. And they damn sure showed out Saturday night in Happy Valley. Like, I know it got tight there at the end, but I thought they were the better team, for probably 50 minutes of that game. And credit to Penn State for making it a ball game. Who are some of the guys for them top of mind who you can recall as recruits?
DeCorian Moore, right? The five-star wide receiver who's a true freshman. And look, coming into the season, we said if there was one individual that was going to have like a Jeremiah Smith impact, it was going to be DeCorian Moore. But as you mentioned, Bud, under Dan Lanning there at Oregon, they have not played the young pups. I think there had not been a day one true freshman starter for Oregon since Dan Lanning had arrived. They had played some of the younger guys late in the season, kind of after opt-outs in the bowl game. So you knew on paper, and having seen DeCorian Moore throughout his high school career and really at the All-Star games this past winter, the Under Armour game, the Polynesian Bowl out in Hawaii, DeCorian Moore was the best player on the field. So when Evan Stewart went down with an injury, it was like, I don't think Oregon's got a chance to really kind of roll him into this. He's got to be a guy from day one. So certainly him. And to me, the other thing here is just like the perfect kind of blend of transfer portal and the high school recruiting. You look back at Oregon's 2025 recruiting class, right? So those are the true freshmen. Oregon signed 20 players. They're all ranked 4-star prospects or higher. That's only happened one other time in the 24/7 sports recruiting era. So I think Dan Lanning, he continues to grab talent from all different avenues. And I thought on Saturday night in the whiteout in Happy Valley, you really saw it, right? Yeah, DeCorian Moore, Dyer Hill, the true freshman running back, Kenyon Sadiq, that's a kid they got out of high school. And then you also look across the starting 22. It's Dante Moore, a kid that comes via the transfer portal. The two tackles, Isaiah Word, Dylan Theineman, who had the game-clinching interception there in overtime. Those were veterans. And I just think from my perspective with this roster management, they have the perfect mix right now. Dan Lanning is that bartender, and he's got it down in terms of, kind of crafting those cocktails.
And like my one memory of DeCorian, I think we both have a bunch, but the one that kind of stood out to me in sort of a different way was it Battle Miami or Pylon Miami? The one in January, like right around when the Natties played. He's down there. I'm like, cool. We're going to get some good video. We'll be able to put some of these shorts on the Cover 3 YouTube channel, and which hopefully, I will say just from the jump, I think as we build this hour out, it's going to be a much better YouTube product. Obviously, we know we have a huge audio audience, so if you guys want to listen to an audio, that's cool. We'll try to describe some of the clips best we can, but this is probably a better visual product. So I would strongly encourage y'all. Even if you don't listen to most Cover 3 episodes on YouTube, this one might be a little bit better on YouTube just because of the visual element. You're getting exposed to some of these guys and be able to see some of their abilities. But he got hurt. Like, he got rocked in that 7-on-7. And, like, selfishly, I mean, obviously you hope the kid's okay. I was like, damn it, man. Like, that's like the one kid I really want to get clips of because I know he's a freak. We had seen him, as a sophomore down there balling out. And, dude, like, I know his mom was worried, and he got up. He's like, F that, I'm playing. Right?
But I said he's like the best 7-on-7 slot receiver, and I know he plays on the outside. I know he can play above shoulder pads, but basically what I'm saying is not one of these, huge freaks. Like, the best 7-on-7 player I'd seen since Jalen Waddle. And the story that always sticks with me is before his senior year, right? Oregon does the Saturday Night Live camp, and then everything has changed. Like, these high-profile blue chip kids, like, they don't work out after their sophomore year, right? They shut it down. They're hanging out on the sidelines in street clothes. From what I heard, Oregon somehow got DeCorian Moore to work out, and then midway through this camp full of elite kids, DeCorian Moore is working in at cornerback, right? He's like trying to guard the other high-profile wide receivers there. And someone in Eugene had brought that up to me just about his competitive drive, how much he cares about winning. And I think that has shown up right through the first month and a half of the college football season.
I know a lot of these guys, they shut it down. They're highly managed. Man, I still like guys who like playing ball. I think like the guys who really enjoy ball, their hit rate, I don't know how you'd model this because you'd have to put a rating of like, do they give a damn about ball rating, I guess, to put it in there. Obviously, we know just intrinsically it's in there. I don't know how you put a number on it. Like, guys who like to play football, I think are dudes who you want to bet on. And, like the toughness of DeCorian, who's not the biggest guy, like his blocking in some of these early games, like, whoa, like some of the stuff he had against Purdue, like he's blocking his butt off. Like that is impressive. And that's something money well spent by Oregon, obviously. And Will Stein does a great job of scheming a lot of the other guys in that offense who are maybe a little more limited. They let DeCorian run the full route tree, man. Like, he's getting himself open. They're not having to scheme a lot of stuff for DeCorian Moore. And they got an absolute superstar there. I know we'll talk later in the show about quarterbacks. The top, I have this here, the top 6 teams in the national championship race, according to the Vegas odds. You know what they have in common?
Please tell me they all have a 5-star quarterback on the roster.
2, 3, 4. Yeah, that is true. Well, except for Georgia, but they all have a guy who was on their roster last year, right? Who's on the roster this year. And I think 5 of the 6 did not have a starter. So Georgia, Bama, Texas, Penn State, Oregon, Ohio State. Like, I know Dante Moore is a transfer, but he was in their system like as a developmental year last year. Obviously, saying there, Drew Aller, Arch was on the roster. Simpson was on the roster. Even Georgia, depending on what you think of their kid. Like, it's interesting they didn't go out and get sort of the, I don't call it mercenary, because I think the transfer portal is actually a great thing for the sport in many ways as far as the ability for kids to find better situations. But it does say something for like quarterback development, maybe having that sit year. Maybe that's coming back in vogue now that all these COVID kids are washing out of the sport.
Absolutely, Bud. I think the quarterback market has completely shifted, right? And schools are going to have to not like get creative, but figure out, all right, where are we going to invest? Is it a guy that has played some college games, or are we going to go after one of these high-profile young, quarterbacks? And you think about quarterback recruiting as well. It is so accelerated, right? A lot of these schools are grabbing kids after their sophomore years, and they still have 24 games to play. And I think it leads to a lot of misevaluations and a lot of expectations that aren't met. Hey, the other thing on Dante Moore, he was committed to Oregon like throughout his recruiting process, right? He was a late flip to UCLA, when Chip Kelly was there. That whole situation is very unique in the sense that he got his feet wet with the Bruins and then decided to take the year off and kind of learn on the sidelines.
Absolutely. And probably no better guy to learn from right now in the Will Stein and the great job they're doing at Oregon. And impressive to see him do it with a relatively younger guy as opposed to he had Bo Nix and he had Dylan Gabriel, who were both they could rent a car by themselves without a waiver. So nice to see him do it with the younger guy. On the flip side of that game, Drew Aller's taken a lot of heat. He was actually PFF's second-rated player on the Penn State offense in this game. Not saying he played well, but I don't know that all the blame needs to go on his shoulders. I do think if he's going to be a top of the draft guy, you want more out of him. But Penn State receivers continue to just be. Last year, I think they were lacking. This year, I think they're probably like just okay. I don't know if they have that difference maker on the outside, and that's something that probably does start at the high school level. It is hard to go get a bunch of stud transfer receivers. I mean, you think about like who are the top transfer receivers, this year. Some of the teams are very happy with what they got. Obviously, Florida State's happy with Deuce. I know Georgia's happy with Branch. That's probably just a product that USC had like 4 NFL guys last year on their roster because USC decided to keep Lemon and Lane and are pretty happy with that decision, I would assume. Penn State receiver recruiting out of high school, though, is an area that I know we've talked about before. I know something you wanted to highlight on today's show, like something they just have to get better at.
I think it's the Achilles heel. And I mean, we'll see how the rest of the season shakes out for Penn State. And I know they went in the transfer portal and they try to get these veterans, that guys that had a large price tag. But I think Penn State continues to underachieve at that wide receiver position. And you look at their 2026 recruiting class. Yeah, they got 3 guys committed. They like all of them. But to me, what I think Penn State lacks is a true game breaker at the position. Like, hey, it's 3rd and 8. Someone's getting open at 9 yards for Drew Aller or whoever is playing quarterback. And to me, I just can't figure out how Penn State has not been able to land one of these guys. And like think about Cam Coleman, right? Or Jeremiah Smith. Yeah, Penn State could have thrown their hat in there. But what about like a Nick Marsh at Michigan State, who's a sophomore in year 2 and having a ton of success there in the Big Ten? Like, to me, their wide receiver recruiting, I can't figure it out. Now, they recruit the heck out of the running back position. Their offensive line is one of the deepest in all of college football, and they have a budding room of future tight ends. But they got to get that figured out. And I thought, once again, in a spotlight game, one that James Franklin needed to have, the wide receivers under-delivered, right? Outside of Devontae Ross, I think they had, one other catch maybe for 16 yards. I mean, it's just not malpractice, but are you really putting your quarterback in the best position to succeed?
They are clearly better at receiver than they were last year, but I'm not sure if you want to lump tight end with this. I'm not sure they are better at pass catcher, right? Because Tyler Warren did so many things for them last year. If you take Decorian and you put him on Penn State's winning that ball game. Because like Gary Bryant's not getting himself open necessarily. He's a decent player, but he's not. Gary Bryant to me is not so much better than Pena or Hudson or whoever those guys for Penn State have. Devontae Ross is a nice addition from Troy, but at the same time, if you look at a lot of his touches, a lot of those are sort of like manufactured touches. He's not necessarily going out there and winning for them on 3rd and 10. I thought Kotelnicki did some good stuff there in the 4th quarter to break out some creative stuff to just get the ball to him in space. But again, that's kind of those manufactured touches. And like the best teams seem to be the teams that have, Ohio State aside, because like that's just a whole different beast. But like they have one guy they can go to on those obvious passing downs, and then maybe some guys who have some good skills, but they're flawed players, like 99% of college football players are, and they're able to manufacture touches for those guys that have some unique skills, but they still have the one guy they can go to. So that does seem to be maybe the missing piece this year for Penn State. As much as we want to bag on Drew Aller, and I get it. Like, I mean, he's not taking that next step necessarily that I think that we all wanted to see him take, but he doesn't suck, man. And I think like when you play in the biggest of games, having that game breaker is a really, really big deal. It's kind of the only reason for all the mobile quarterback stuff that we talked about when Saban was in his prime. Oh, they can't handle mobile quarterbacks. Some of the guys that like they were throwing the ball up to in those games, if you tracked who he lost to, it was almost always people who could beat all the man-on-man, single coverage stuff, right? Like a Mike Evans, Alshon Jeffrey, like some guys are just like, oh, guess what? Your 5-star corner can handle us. Think again, right? You cannot play. You really can't play single coverage on that.
And
Speaking of the Saban, oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, well, I just want to point this out, but I don't know if you've heard the same, but you go back to this past transfer window, like talking with different GMs and guys in personnel departments, there was a huge market for these X wide receivers with size that can do exactly what we're talking about, win on the outside and make the 50-50 contested catches. You brought up Deuce Robinson. There's a few others out there in college football, but like these are the ones. And there are a ton of, smaller receivers in the transfer portal every single window, but like the Isaiah Hortons, the Deuce Robinsons, like those guys are extremely valuable. Noah Thomas at Georgia, like those are the ones where when they hit or when they enter, the college football playoff contenders are gravitating towards those guys.
It's also as we see the sport really just going to so much too high, right? Deny the explosive play at all costs. That is producing an increased number of red zone snaps, especially in these big time games. And then it becomes at a certain point a vertical game, a size game, a box out game, and that's where the size really matters when you get inside that low red zone. It's harder to just scheme guys wide open. All right, so let's go to another team here that unfortunately had a disappointing result over the weekend, and that's Georgia, which do we need to issue like an MIA or a APB for Georgia's pass rush, dude? Because I'm Kalen DeBoer somehow has like a magic bullet in the first half against all these Saban-style defenses. Like if you look at what he did both times at Washington against Oregon, obviously he's done it to Kirby twice now. Like they go out, they should have scored 31 in the first half in Athens. They scored 24. If Riley Williams catches that ball, it's probably 31 in the first half. What is up with Georgia's defense?
I can't figure it out, right? Because I got into the PFF and I added it up. By my count, 8 former 5-stars played 25 plus snaps against Alabama. Again, 8 5-stars on the defensive side of the ball. I thought it was a bit alarming if you go back to off-season chatter fodder right there in August. Elijah Griffin, the number 1 D lineman from this past recruiting cycle, 5-star interior guy, was getting a lot of buzz, which to me wasn't surprising. I think when you looked at Georgia's roster and these defensive linemen, it's like, okay, Elijah Griffin, I would put him in a different category than the Christian Millers, than the Jordan Halls, who are ranked extremely high. So I think they've been searching on the interior. Now, Elijah Griffin, I think he played a season high, 30 snaps against Alabama, but they got to get him going. I also think Chris Cole, the linebacker, like give me more of Chris Cole. But I, to me, I think what's a little alarming about Georgia, we just talked about all the former 5-stars that are there, with how college football, the landscape has changed, right? With the rev share, and we're seeing more, highly ranked players end up at other schools than ever before. I worry about what does the Georgia defense look like 2 years from now? Because Georgia right now, number 2 ranked recruiting class in the 24/7 Sports composite team rankings, right? They got like 31 guys committed. None of those are 5-star defenders. Like, I just think Kirby Smart and his staff are having to adjust, or they're going to have to pivot at some point down the line where you aren't getting the best of the best because so much has changed and parity is here in college football. So that's something that stood out to me. Like, I don't know if it's a personnel issue. I just think Georgia's obviously very young. I mean, they lost, 7 guys on the defensive side of the ball to the 2025 NFL draft. So it's some youth, but these guys can play. It's just they don't seem to be gelling right now.
So if you take a look at this too, the sport is just compressing so much. We go back like a half decade from a power rating standpoint. I'll just use the FPI because it was easy to pull up, and unfortunately, ESPN's having some issues right now displaying Connolly's stats. So we'll go with the FPI for a second here, but just go with me. From a power rating standpoint, like the national champions, like half a decade ago, were power rated a 30. Oregon's number 1 right now at a 24. So basically, like the very best teams in the sport are a touchdown worse than they were a half decade ago, which means it's a little bit harder to just hoard that much talent, right? And so you don't have quite as much iron sharp as iron, even at a place like Georgia, as you did back when Georgia was winning. I mean, they had like Jalen Carter and all those guys on 1 D line. It was insane. I'm going to read you a list here too, to your point, as far as the ability to hold on to that much talent. Ja Jarrett, Marvin Jones Jr., who's finally getting it right at Oklahoma, it appears, maybe. Xavier Sorey, Barry Alexander, who actually played some big-time snaps for Oregon in the win there in Happy Valley. Damian Wilson, who's killing it right now at Missouri. Darius Smith, and Sam Pemba. Like, some of those guys are dudes who we knew were raw but needed development, and they bounce for playing time earlier, and they're now basically developing and playing at other schools, and they're eventually hitting their ceilings, right? And so I don't know if it's like an internal evaluation and selection issue at Georgia. And the thing is, if you're at Georgia, you're not going to play those guys when they're not ready if you have guys who are ready. But sometimes good is the enemy of great, right? And it's hard to convince those guys to stick around if maybe they didn't like how they were being used in Wilson's case, right? Or just maybe they were not getting a full starters, share of snaps. So I don't think they quite have the depth, to your point, that they once did.
I had someone at Georgia tell me maybe a year ago, it's like, hey, we don't really recruit developmental guys. You're showing up and expected to compete for a spot in the two deep. And to your point, Bud, it's kind of a double-sided knife, right? Like if a kid isn't ready to go, then they are going to hit the transfer portal. And we saw Georgia backfill a little bit with some guys in the front seven. It's interesting, just again with the current landscape. I think Georgia is one of the more affected teams out there in terms of how they've had to recalibrate their operation.
100%. And even on the other side, first of all, Ty Simpson, I thought he was going in the right places against Florida State. He was just getting there a second late. And that led to 5 pass breakups by FSU DBs. In this Georgia game, he got to the right places and he was on time with it. And really, part of that is he had very little pass pressure around him, especially in the first half. But on Bama's defensive side, Quay Rusaw's out now. They had another couple guys who I saw Overton, get banged. I think he's okay. I'm very curious to see how they play this weekend against Vanderbilt. That's a Vandy team that, again, as a product of the transfer portal, and Barton's doing a good job developing their guys there and getting guys who really fit their system. I think they're pretty true to who they are, in many ways, as far as just understanding what their system requires, what they need, and obviously what deficiencies they can tolerate relative to the system that they run. But I'm curious to see how their defense looks this weekend. I mean, the back end looked pretty good against Bama, or against Georgia, but they're getting a little thin there as well on the defensive side. So it's hard to hoard talent, man.
You think Caden Proctor could give some snaps there in the middle of the defensive line?
Man, good for that kid for finally getting it right. He was really, really good. In Tallahassee, I was like, good God, is there a more looks like Tarzan plays like Jane kid? And then in Athens, flipped the switch, man. He was pretty good against Wisconsin as well. So, good to see that. He's a freak.
Yeah, obviously I do a little play on Bruce Feldman's freaks list with the high school guys. I think Caden Proctor was the first year I rolled it out, and I had a video of him pushing his teammates in an F-150 across a parking lot during a summer workout. I don't know. That's where my mind went when he caught the little pass and plowed through those guys. I thought he scored a touchdown. So
yeah, the photo of him running with the ball is that. That's just not normal. Normal humans don't do that. That is wild. All right, we talked about some blue chip quarterbacks who are finally showing out. Let's take a look at the high school class of 2026 quarterbacks here, and kind of check in on how the senior seasons are doing. I know you've done a lot of research on this, and it does look that there's some real correlation between having a good senior season. It's not determinative, obviously. If you don't have a good senior season, doesn't mean you're doomed for all time. But if you have a nice senior season, it does usually show that, you're much more likely to be able to play and play well early. Who are some guys we need to highlight from this list?
Well, to touch on the senior season thing, Bud, and look, there is no formula to evaluating quarterbacks. If there was, I think the NFL would have figured it out at this point. But from what we've seen over the years, usually these quarterbacks that in their prep careers on a high note, those are the ones that seem to be ready to go. Look at Bryce Underwood at Michigan. This is a kid that started 54 games throughout his high school career. Jaron Kiave Sagabatelli at Cal, Malik Washington there at Maryland. Those are kind of the other Jim, true freshman signal callers. But like both those guys, played for championships of some type of sort as seniors in high school. And they started 34 games. And why I bring that up is you saw our list of quarterbacks at the top, and obviously we have listeners as well. You got Faison Brandon, number one player in the country. He's committed to Tennessee. Right behind him, you have Dia Bell, the Texas commit, Elite 11 Finals MVP. What's unfortunate is both those guys are dealing with injuries, and Dia Bell has shut it down. He's done for his senior season there at American Heritage, and this is the second year in a row he's going to miss postseason football, right? He played a few playoff games last year before injuring his leg, rehab, came back, obviously looked great out in LA at the nation's premier quarterback competition, got a few games under his belt, and they have shut it down. So Dia Bell, 24 starts is what he's going to have over his high school career. You look at Faison Brandon, dealing with something with his hand, I believe, got hurt in his senior season opener on a touchdown run, game-winning touchdown run. I think he kind of landed on it and nasty. And why we bring these up, Bud, these two quarterbacks, is I think a lot of people assume, okay, you see the 5-star ranking, you see what a guy like Bryce Underwood has done at Michigan, you see what we saw from DJ Lagway in his rookie campaign at Florida. You assume these guys are going to step in and be ready to go. I don't know if that's the case with Faison Brandon. I don't know if that's the case with Dia Bell. And, Tennessee and Texas, very interesting potential quarterback situations heading into the 2026 season. They're in Knoxville. Joey Aguilar, he's out of eligibility. Now they have George McIntyre. But are they going to kind of hand the keys to the offense to Faison Brandon, who, didn't get that senior season, didn't get all those live reps, didn't have to overcome some adversity or difficult situations in a state title run? Now, he's played a lot of football. I just don't think it was ideal for his development. And then at Texas, if Arch Manning really is, the biggest bust of all time, is Sark going to run it back with him? Or would they potentially look to add a transfer quarterback, knowing that, hey, maybe Dia Bell isn't ready to go because this is a guy that second season in a row he has dealt with an injury?
Oh no, mute button. I've got the wind chime on the patio. I got to take this thing down because when it gets windy here, you can kind of hear it in the background.
The hurricane's moving through, right? Tropical storm.
It is, man. It is. At least in Tennessee's case, you saying this made me pull up their schedule for next year. This is a very friendly schedule overall. So you get Furman, Georgia Tech, who loses Haynes King, although we know they like to back up quite a bit. Kennesaw, Arkansas, at a South Carolina team that I'm assuming will lose Lenore Sellers. He's actually been playing pretty well with a very limited supporting cast around him there for the Gamecocks. You got to play Bama. You got to play Auburn. Both those are at home. You get Kentucky. You get LSU. They lose Nussmeier. You get Texas, as we just mentioned. You get at A&M. It's not easy. And you get Vandy, which, unless Pavia wins the ruling, Vandy without Pavia will look a little different. I don't think they're going to fall off and just be awful, but he has just been such a perfect fit for what they do there in Nashville. So depending on, do we know the dates on these games yet, or just the opponents? I think it's just the opponents right in the SEC. He might get a lot of run early, man. Like if you get those 3 non-con games and then like an Arkansas, maybe Brandon is a guy that they try to roll with. It'll be interesting to see. Certainly they would feel better about it if he actually had a senior season, especially if he was balling out in that senior season. 2 guys, though, that I want to highlight, and I know we talked about this pre-show. So Keyshawn at Houston, and then Jared Curtis, who's committed to Georgia. What have you seen from those guys so far?
Oh, Keyshawn Henderson's kind of like the darling of the 24/7 Sports scouting department. It's a kid we had listed as an athlete this time last year, which is honestly embarrassing given how he has looked as a quarterback. MVP of the Navy All-American Bowl as a junior. That was the first year we had the underclassmen there in San Antonio, and he was the difference. He was electric. He led his team to multiple scoring drives when no one else could move the ball. As a senior, he has just lit it up. And again, listed at one time as an athlete because some schools thought he was a wide receiver. Some schools thought he was a defensive back. No, he is a quarterback and a guy that wants to win with his arms. You see him under center, right? So, when you're going through the tape, you're like, whoa, okay, like didn't know we were getting some 5 and 7-step drops for Keyshawn Henderson, but he's doing it. And what always sticks out to me about Keyshawn Henderson is he is a magnetic personality, a glowing personality. You see him on the sidelines, you see him in different kind of environments in 7-on-7 or the Elite 11 finals. Like, he is a force multiplier. Kids want to play with him. He raises the ceiling. I thought out at the Elite 11, I know Diabell was the MVP, but I thought there was a different energy when Keyshawn Henderson, when he went. And why this is important. He's our number 2 player right now, and he's committed to Houston, right? He's committed to Houston. And all the time people push back on our rankings about, oh, you guys just look at the offer sheets and this and that. It's like, no, our number 2 players headed to the Big 12 to play for Willie Fritz and the Cougars. And it'll be interesting, Bud, to see, if anyone tries to take a swipe at him down the stretch. The past few years, we've had big, high-profile quarterbacks flip at the buzzer. Bryce Underwood from LSU to Michigan, Dante Moore, right? It was Oregon to UCLA. Like, these things happen. And Keyshawn Henderson, he's been linked to a few different programs. With that being said, he seems to be all in on Houston. And I think if you're looking right now for a quarterback that's going to make some noise in 2026 coming from the high school ranks, Keyshawn Henderson would be my pick.
Do you remember the last time that Georgia had a quarterback drafted in the top half of the draft?
Well, Stetson Bennett was day 3, right?
Yeah.
So it's got to be Matt Stafford.
15 years since Georgia had a QB drafted in the top half of the draft. Like, given just the tremendous NFL production out of that program, it does seem a little wild that they've basically had good caretakers, but caretakers, for lack of a better word, Bennett, Jake Fromm, Aaron Murray, like guys who were, good college quarterbacks. Obviously Bennett, won national titles there. But Curtis is a guy, like, I know over the summer, it's like, man, is this kid ever going to be healthy and like be at an event and play with other elite guys? Or at least it is helpful to compare some of these guys when you see the body types, you see how they interact, you see how the ball comes off their hands. When you get a big collection of 4 and 5 star, or 4 and 5 star hopefuls at an event, I'm just glad this guy's healthy and playing now, man. Like, what have you seen now that has you so encouraged?
I think he's a fighter pilot. To steal a term from our former colleague Barton Simmons there. I mean, you rattled off some quarterbacks, and I think they would be in Barton's bus driver, maybe bucket.
Yeah.
That was the big question about Jared Curtis. Like, what is the ceiling? Can he be the guy when he needs to be the guy? Now he's there outside of Nashville. He's playing a lower level of football in Tennessee, and he has absolutely lit it up over the past few years, but we've never seen him really in a best on best setting. He wasn't at the Elite 11 finals. Now, that certainly is not the end all be all in our evaluation process. We got him at the OT7 championships, which has kind of turned into the opening finals. And it was hard to really gauge what was the buy-in from Jared Curtis, but you could tell, all right, this guy can make every throw on the field. He is 6'4", he is 230 pounds. And really entering the senior season, we knew, hey, Jared Curtis, he's got this spotlight matchup, right? He's going to play a higher level of competition in Innsworth. And Bud, I thought he was awesome. He was the guy. And to me, that's what we wanted to see from Jared Curtis. He kind of reminds me, and I've gotten pushback here from some of the guys on my team. He reminds me of Dylan Raiola at Nebraska, but an athletic Dylan Raiola. And remember, Dylan was committed to Georgia at one point during the recruiting process. The folks in Athens are fired up about what they are getting in Jared Curtis, and kind of talking with some of those individuals after that huge game where he was the difference, and he scored 4 touchdowns. He ran for a few others. They didn't know that they had that in Jared Curtis. So I think from what we've seen of Jared Curtis, him and Keyshawn Henderson are really the 2 quarterbacks that have us the most excited here as you know, the midway point of these senior seasons. And I think for Georgia, this is the guy, right? They've tried to get more athletic at quarterback. You can tell just kind of based on some of the scholarship offers that they've given out and really over like the past 12 months. It's like, okay, you know, you can tell maybe they're trying to get some guys that can beat you with their legs. And I think Jared Curtis, who was a running back at one point in the youth football leagues, like he's the perfect guy because he can make all the throws in Mike Bobo's offense, but he can also create with his legs. And when he escapes the pocket, he is a threat to move the chains.
Just in those clips we just saw there, I like that he was decisive and on time with it. Like on that one in-breaking route, I mean, he's throwing that before the guy gets into his break. Like that's some of these guys. I'm always a little bit worried if they're like so see it, throw it, you know. And sometimes when they play on these dominant teams, you never have to really anticipate because you can see it and throw it. But like it looks there like he's throwing the ball, you know, on time. I like how he slid in the pocket to find a different passing lane. The one's kind of like sidearming, not to do like the imitating Mahomes thing, but like it looked like he had to slide there, you know, to find a better angle. And then, you know, when the guy's not when the guy's not open, he seems to take off at the right time. So like that's some encouraging clips right there. Obviously, that's if you're a Georgia fan, that's not a bad little thing to hear on Tuesday morning after that loss to Alabama. That you might have a true difference maker coming in at quarterback for sure. So he'll be there next year. Let's go ahead and pivot now to guys who are coming in 2027. I know we have our updated 24/7 Sports Top 247 coming out Wednesday, right? So let's get a little preview of, obviously, like not everybody who listens to Cover 3 loves recruiting, but give me like 3 or 4 names that you really should know so you can kind of like start talking to your buddies in your foursome this weekend. All right, hey, have you guys seen this dude? Have you seen that dude? And they're going to think y'all are like true ball knowers.
Yeah, ball knowers, right? Nerd out here. Yeah, our 2027 rankings updates coming out on Wednesday, Bud. Everything has changed so much, right? We keep talking about the college football landscape and how accelerated recruiting has gotten, right? Remember when like mid-years used to be kind of a big deal? Now, like if you're recruiting, if you don't mid-year, it's like, what's wrong? Most of these colleges have shifted their focus from the class of 2026. So that's the seniors right now to the class of 2027. Those are the juniors. And after the season, after the playoff, you're going to see a lot of these guys come off the board. And, you know, these kids are taking visits now. And I think if you see or you hear that one of these names is at your college or visiting your rivals, it's a big deal. And Bud, the guy I want to start with, DJ Jacobs, edge rusher out of Georgia. This guy's an animal. You know, a player is good if you are watching other guys and you are like, who is number 15 on the screen, right? That happened 3 or 4 times with DJ Jacobs. I call him a cast iron edge player. This guy gets after the quarterback. And, you know, dad played at Georgia. Bulldogs seem to be in a very good spot with him. But everyone in the country is after DJ Jacobs, right? He's been to Oregon. He has been to Miami. You think about 2 point-of-attack programs right now. They fit the bill. And DJ Jacobs, to me, I think he is a difference maker. I think he's a guy that you can align at multiple spots up front. I think the other thing that jumps out about DJ Jacobs is he wins with effort, right? He can go speed, he can go power, but he brings it every single snap. And I think when you find one of these guys that, you know, has a potential round 1 of the NFL draft ceiling, and they are getting the most out of them in terms of applying, you know, the effort and the pursuit and all that, those are the ones that have a chance to be special. So DJ Jacobs, man, if he shows up on your campus, like this is the one to certainly know.
Yeah, I mean, 6'5", 2.25 is what I think our latest measurement on him. If you're scoring at home, like for a guy who's just playing his junior year, that's actually really good size. He could easily play. What do you think he plays at? Like 255, 260?
Yeah, it's again, you know, it's fun, Bud, because I've been in this chair for I don't know, 4 or 5 years now, and a lot of the guys in the NFL drafts are you're seeing them in the mock drafts, right? A lot of the seniors, and it's like guys you thought were going to shift inside, ended up staying on the edge. I would say DJ Jacobs has a chance to maybe get up to 285.
Okay.
Do they want him to do that? The individual he kind of reminds me of, if we're talking about like current college football, would be Keldrick Falk, who Auburn has used a different alignment depending on the down and distance. So, yeah, I think 285. He's a kid that showed up on one of these college visits, and the feedback from the college side was like, who is this animal that just walked through our door?
True, man. His closing speed at that size is crazy. On this video again, this is why you guys should be watching us certainly on YouTube. All right, Ivins, who else we got that we really should know in that 2027 class?
I'm going to save the quarterback for last. Let's go to the Hoosier State. Wide receiver Monshun Sales. But I think this guy, I think he's like in the Cam Coleman conversation. I don't know if I want to put him in the Jeremiah Smith, but I want everyone to picture a big freak that can win on the outside, and that is Monshun Sales. He's a kid that I saw at a 7-on-7 camp back in the spring. I had a hunch that he was the real deal, and he has absolutely flipped the script here as a junior. If you wanted to tell me he was a safety, I mean, he is a top 50 prospect for us. Shows a ton of physicality there, but man, can play above shoulder pads. Bud, you brought it up earlier in the show. All right, you need guys that can get open down in the red zone. That is Monshun Sales. I actually had a DPP at an SEC program tell me, we were trading texts kind of regarding some of the wide receivers, and they said they thought he was the best red zone target in the class. I would absolutely agree and stamp that. Why I think Monshun Sales is interesting is, look, he's right there in the Midwest. Ohio State has had their pick of the litter when it comes to these wide receivers. But is Monshun Sales going to end up there in Columbus playing for Zone 6? He's a guy that I think would solve a lot of problems for Penn State, who we just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Solve a lot of problems for Michigan, which is where he's been multiple times. You think about Bryce Underwood, getting him some help. We saw that kind of rear its head in the Oklahoma game. He can't be a one-man show. You need guys that can be difference makers on the outside. I think Monshun Sales is certainly a name to know. And I bring up the Cam Coleman because, yes, he is a big freak. But Cam Coleman, he didn't have a ton of production until his senior season. There was a massive uptick. You saw the year-over-year improvement. We are seeing that with Monshun Sales.
In watching this, you don't see a lot of the dropping the hips in the route, but I think in that first clip when he was actually like juke those two guys out, like that's some really nice agility right there, which was always kind of the question with a guy who's already 6'5", close to 200 as a junior in high school. And then on the one ball, which is pretty badly underthrown, he does a good job of like tracking it, tempoing down, and then creating that late separation as opposed to just continuing his route and having to come back for it. Like that's pretty advanced stuff right there, man. It looks like a kid who plays hard. This is exciting for sure. Do you think is Sales the type of kid that just maybe there's not a kid like him in every class?
I think he's a freak, man. I think he is the biggest freak show, and look, that's the beauty of kind of evaluating these guys, right? And if you're trying to win on Saturdays, I can see someone sitting in the other chair being, hey, this guy might not be ready day one, but he can do things that other individuals simply can't because he's got the God-given athletic juice, right? We're talking about a kid that, 98 explosion score, 95 speed score for next-gen prospects at 6'4", 215 pounds. So, yeah, he's going to be a longer burn, but you want to see the improvement, and who knows what kind of jump he's going to make. We saw the sophomore to junior year, junior to senior year. It could be a completely different level.
And we know much like the tight end position, sometimes the kind of Jeremiah accepted, the bigger frame receivers are often the guys you got to keep watching because they do develop a little bit later. Oftentimes, it's just more body to control. It's kind of like, tackles. Running backs, a lot of times you can kind of see, a little bit earlier. All right, Ivins, got time for a couple more here. Who else do we want to really highlight?
Well, I mentioned the quarterback. We're going to save him for last. You brought up tight ends, Bud. Ahmad Hudson. And the reason I'm bringing up Ahmad Hudson is because this kid's probably going to play college football and he's probably going to play college basketball. He is a top 247 recruit for the basketball guys at 24/7 Sports. Man, he is one of my favorite tight ends that I've scouted through the high school ranks. Now, I'd put Luke Reynolds at Penn State up there. I put Mark Bowman, who is committed to USC in the 2026 cycle. But Ahmad Hudson, he is the guy in 2027. I was up at Nebraska back in June, and Matt Rule and the Cornhuskers, they kind of had this really unique 7-on-7 tournament where club teams from around the country showed up, and Ahmad Hudson was there, and he absolutely took over the event. I mean, you see it right there, 6'6.5", 230 pounds, gets it done on the EYBL circuit again, he can legitimately play basketball, but this guy is a difference maker at tight end. And Bud, what's unique about him, he gets a lot of inline work. Like usually, these tight ends, like they're these glorified jumbo wide receivers on the outside. That is not the case with Ahmad Hudson. He blocks, right? He's a blocker first. He's a pass catcher second. And a lot of schools around the country, this is the top guy that's on their board at tight end. I mentioned Nebraska, Matt Rule on the Cornhuskers bye week. He was down in Louisiana to see Ahmad Hudson play. All the heavy hitters are involved with him. I think Trey'Dez Green, at LSU, who has played basketball for the Tigers as well. To me, I think Ahmad Hudson is a better version of Trey'Dez Green, who is more of a perimeter wide receiver. I think this guy can be an inline tight end, and just love the way that he is wired. He is a competitor, nonstop year-round athlete, and I think Ahmad Hudson, freak. We said it with Monshon Sales. That is also the case with Ahmad Hudson.
And when you watch Hudson here, a lot of times when you see these basketball guys getting the 3-point, it looks foreign to them, and they pop right up out of their stance. He actually comes out with some good lean to him. That's good to see. All right, two more. I know you got on your list. Do you want to go Brewster or you want to go QB?
Yeah, let's just hit on Elijah Haven real quick, right? The number one ranked quarterback in the class of 2027. This recruitment is interesting to me, Bud, because 4 of the top 10 ranked quarterbacks have already given verbal pledges. The dominoes are going to fall really soon. We talked about it. Quarterback recruiting is so accelerated. Elijah Haven, I know you saw him at the Future 50 this summer at IMG Academy. I mean, he is supersized. He is one of the biggest quarterbacks to come out of the high school ranks in recent years. 6'5", 215 pounds. A lot of Florida buzz for Elijah Haven back during the summer months. Now, Billy Napier's seat is as hot as ever. And that kind of has me wondering, okay, who is the team to beat for Elijah Haven? He goes to school right there in Baton Rouge. LSU already has their quarterback. They went with Peyton Houston, another in-state kid. Elijah Haven wasn't for them. So, where does Elijah Haven end up? Penn State has gotten involved. Georgia's involved. Is it Florida? So he is one to know. Kind of reminds me of Jacoby Brissett, right? And I think a lot of people think about Jacoby Brissett in the NFL and the tail end of his career. Like Jacoby Brissett was a good college player, right? And he was good on Sundays as well. Jacoby Brissett was a basketball player. Elijah Haven is a basketball player as well, can finish above the rim on the hardwood. Little bit up and down start to his junior year. There's been really highs. There's been some lows, but I thought at the Future 50, where all the top juniors in the country were there, he exceeded expectations for me. I mean, this is a guy that, once NFL evaluators get around him, I mean, they're going to be drooling over him. So certainly a name to know at quarterback.
And when you talk to him, he doesn't really talk like a 15 or 16-year-old. Like he seems to kind of get it, which is certainly encouraging just from the limited interactions I had with him there at Future 50. All right, and the last one, number one defensive lineman in the class, Jalen Brewster. Why do we need to be excited about this guy?
Jalen Brewster, he's going to announce a college commitment on Thursday. Texas Tech appears to be in the driver's seat to land the number 1 ranked D lineman in the class of 2027. I say that they appear to be in the driver's seat, Bud. Some of these high profile recruitments have gotten very interesting in the final 24 hours. Jalen Brewster kid, we saw at the Navy National Combine back in January. We loved him there. Bud, you'll like this. He has played some Wildcat quarterback at 300 pounds there for Cedar Hill High School, doing it a little bit here and there. Look, it's so hard, I think, for these big bodies to identify them so early in these recruiting cycles. And Jalen Brewster is one of these guys. I think he's a 3-tech. I think he can push pockets. He can make stops in lateral pursuit. He is someone that has a chance to be an impact player up front, especially if, he ends up in the Big 12 at Texas Tech. And, the Red Raiders, 2027 for them. I know it was a big transfer portal class. That's one of the big reasons why, they are in the college football playoff conversation. But Joey McGuire and those guys are parlaying that into the high school ranks, right? If there is a postseason appearance, they're going to have the opportunity to capitalize on the recruiting front because, yes, compensation, NIL deals, those are certainly factor heavily into a lot of these decisions, but you still have to get a seat at the table with these prospects. And I think Texas Tech, what they have a chance to do in 2027, they're also involved with Kavion Bryant, quarterback there, number 3 quarterback nationally, one of the top players in the state of Texas. Keep an eye on the Red Raiders because it's not just what they're doing in the transfer portal. They are now getting more active on the high school front, and they're getting a seat at the table with some of these players that usually they wouldn't. I mean, heck, Bud, they went into Georgia and they got LaDainian Guyton, a 5-star edge rusher that anyone in the SEC would have loved to have.
I mean, watching this guy, he's certainly taller than a Booger McFarland was, but you see, and maybe it's just because the red pants, so you think bucks a little bit, but there's a lot to like here, man. It's a little like Marcel Darius-ish too, to kind of a throwback to a Bama guy, but the bend he plays with it, the ability to keep one hand free and engage is this is nice, man. This is certainly a guy. If Texas Tech does get him, that's a hell of a get for the Red Raiders. And man, if that's the case, Texas Tech's going to become a major pain in the ass for schools like Texas and A&M. I mean, this is Jimbo kind of disrupted the national title race when they did such a good job recruiting all those D linemen that one year. It was okay, so we're just going to take all the top D linemen in the sport and just send them to one school. What's this going to have downstream effects to an Alabama or an LSU or a Texas or an Ohio State? Tech's starting to grab some of these impact big bodies out of the high school ranks that are just kind of difficult to get in the portal. I mean, you see here number 23 right now in the 2026 class, but some of the guys that they're getting are really highly rated dudes.
I haven't seen Texas Tech recruit like this, and I don't know, to tie all this together, right, about parity in the sport. I mean, in previous years, LaDainian Guyton is going to go play for Nick Saban at Alabama, or LaDainian Guyton is going to go play for Kirby Smart at Georgia. Jalen Brewster is likely ending up at Texas A&M or Texas. It's just, you talk with the guys that pull the strings of these rosters, and everyone is having to adjust. And you brought it up with the power ratings and the FPI. It really is leveling out the playing field.
No doubt about it. All right, last one here. We talk about all these stars. You can't afford to have a roster of nobody but 5 stars. You have to do a good job on the evaluations of sort of some of the down ballot guys. You got to do a good job of understanding what your scheme demands and also what flaws potentially you can deal with relative to what you run. You have a guy you wanted to highlight who had an absolute beast mode game against one of the better offenses in the country, shockingly, so far this year, and that's Anthony Smith at Minnesota.
Yeah, but I'm hoping we can during the season, maybe this be a weekly award, kind of evaluation of the week. Give a golf clap to a coaching staff or a personnel department out there that, really not like outkick their coverage, but, got someone that maybe others didn't see it. And that is really paying off. And it is Anthony Smith. I think he tied for the FBS lead this past Saturday, 7 pressures, 2 sacks against Rutgers. He was really big late in the fourth quarter for the Golden Gophers to secure that huge win. And Anthony Smith is a kid that's originally from Pennsylvania, Bud, and Ohio State didn't offer him. More notably, Penn State didn't offer him, but Minnesota did. And I think he's a perfect fit for PJ Fleck's program. And it's turned into a development program, right? Put these guys in a strength program, the first strength session, the first few years, and then reap the benefits at some point down the line. And Anthony Smith, you talk with the people that know, this is a guy that could very well end up going in day 2 of the NFL draft. And his profile was awesome coming out of high school. He shattered multiple backboards while playing basketball. He was on my freaks list. So I do want to give a shout out to Minnesota. Antoine Irisay last year was a guy that they plucked from 3-star land and turned him into a day 2 NFL draft pick. Anthony Smith looking like another hidden gem for them where they were well ahead of the curve.
Absolutely. It's been fun, man. We definitely do this every week as we lead up to signing day. Maybe a couple one-offs in the offseason as well, a couple around some of these national events. We'll incorporate more video going forward as well. Probably see some of this content on some of our social channels. Be sure to follow, like, and subscribe to the Cover 3 channel. How can they follow you?
You can find me on X. I'm also on Instagram, and I've dipped my toes into the TikTok water there, Bud, but I'm still learning.
I have a TikTok. CBS posts some stuff and they collab or share or tag me or whatever. I don't actually know my TikTok password, so I need to figure that out. I made it a long while ago, but you can follow me at Bud Elliott 3 on Twitter or X, and Bud Elliott CFB there on Instagram if you want. And depending on when this comes out, you can also watch Cover 3 at noon Eastern on CBS Sports Network. So we'll be talking some of the Big Ten highlights so far and maybe breaking down the Big Ten championship race. So for Andrew Ivins, Bud Elliott, appreciate you guys joining the Cover 3 Recruiting Hour.